We've already talked about subverting expectations a few times before, I think most recently with me discussing the sharp turn from crime caper to vampire film and From Dusk Till Dawn. The best types of movies find ways to completely blow us away with changes, and most of the time, it's just one scene that does it. Can you imagine if all of Dutch's team in Predator got eliminated in one fell swoop? Or if the entire crew in Saving Private Ryan got taken out before getting to the bridge to help that titular character? James Cameron approached this with the wonderful police station shootout in Terminator, but perfected it in his next film. No, I'm not talking about making a sequel to Alien, one of the best horror movies and secret slashers of all time, that ended up being a genre switch into one of the greatest sci-fi action films ever. As good of a turn as that generally is, I'm talking about the fate of the cool as ice Marine squad in the span of just under 10 minutes. This is Aliens, and this is the scene that changes the movie. Aliens is the 1986 sci-fi action movie, yeah, with some horror sprinkled in, that falls into a category of one of the best sequels ever made. While it's incredibly tough to say that it's better than the original, because that's basically a different genre, and asking me to choose between something chocolatey or something sour when I have a sweet tooth, I certainly wouldn't argue with anyone that said they preferred watching it to the original movie. James Cameron, fresh off his career-making film, not Piranha 2 but The Terminator, had big Ridley Scott-sized shoes to fill when taking on somebody else's work to turn it into something new inside the continuity. What we got was a continuation of his mastery. The story was put together by Cameron himself as well as Walter Hill and David Giler, with the screenplay getting credited to just Cameron. Regardless of what version of the movie you do watch, it's incredible. You may prefer the shorter, and I use the term loosely, version of the movie to the more drawn-out director's cut, but the movie ends up wonderful regardless. Cameron brought back Sigourney Weaver as Ripley, and she was paid quite a lot more this time around, thankfully. And she even turned that into an Oscar-nominated performance as one of the most badass female protagonists ever. As good as she is, the rest of the cast is great either to hate completely with Paul Reiser's scumbag corporate officer Burke, a role that got a family member to slap him at the premiere, or the fun journey of a good android named Bishop from Lance Henriksen. The Marines are all solid too, from Jeanette Goldstein's first role, and a first of a few collaborations with Cameron, to the 1-2 punch of the late great Bill Paxton's Hudson and Michael Bihn's Hicks. Biehn would actually replace James Remar early on in production to add another career-defining role for the actor. The Marines feel like a unit, and their introduction scene was actually filmed very late in production to give them a feeling of camaraderie which they had after filming for so long. It's these Marines that are the center of the scene breakdown. The scene in question starts at 54 minutes into the runtime, well, depending on what version of choice you choose. After finding a whole lot of nothing in the seemingly abandoned colony, the trackers for the colonists show them all in one central location. The Marines go in, weapons hot, after being slightly spooked the last 20 or so minutes. It becomes almost a Vietnam War allegory as they tread on unfamiliar ground. The cold steel of Hadley's hope has now become an organic trap, a stomping ground for the bugs they thought they could squash easily. Gorman, the leader of the mission with almost no experience, shows that lack of real-time experience by not realizing that the Marines are now in a building that could potentially explode if they use the wrong ammo type. They are ordered to stow their big weapons and rely on smaller caliber and flame, something not everyone has. As they search the catacomb-like structure, they find a live colonist, but not for long as the chestburster explodes out, followed by the bright light and extreme heat of a flamethrower. The motion trackers light up, and the confusion sets in as the walls come alive. To fully understand the impact of that scene, we need to look at what leads up to it. At 18 minutes into the theatrical cut at least, we're introduced to this ragtag group of badasses. They engage in group workouts, give each other crap, and generally act like a close team. They have their resident android Bishop, another great subversion after what we saw androids do in the first movie, and he does a knife trick on one of their hands, and even they all discuss aliens, which they not only don't seem to be afraid of, but potentially have banged it out with? What's also striking for the events about to unfold is that all these characters have speaking lines. You know, something you'd give to characters that would potentially be important for your movie. They definitely aren't worried about another quote-unquote bug hunt and don't believe Ripley when she says they need to take it seriously. They are lean and mean according to, well, themselves, and Hudson even goes over all the beautiful weaponry they have, including pointed sticks. Again, in the longer version anyway. They then show off their tactical prowess by letting themselves into the colony only to be slowly scared off. Any and all music and almost all of the whimsical chatter stops, and it's just what's left of the installation. This isn't the fight they'd prepared for, and it's unnerving, eerie even. They get rattled by one of the motion trackers going off, as well as when they see the signs of the things that Ripley warned them about. Heck, even Newt knows they're screwed up and probably aren't gonna make it out of there. It's now 1 hour in, and they have walked into a trap. There's movement everywhere, and the infrared doesn't help them at all, nor does the motion tracker madness make them feel comfortable at all. Within 30 seconds of the scene starting, 4 are either dead or captured, including the guy who had most of their ammo. They don't really work together anymore either. Their comms aren't working, Gorman isn't much help at all, just wait till he tries to stop Pinhead in Hellraiser 2, and Apone, their field leader, he's gone too. We get some great, almost found footage-like views of their shoulder cams that kind of remind me of Event Horizon. It perfectly illustrates how screwed they are as well as how disorganized they've become. Ripley takes action though and heads out to try and save the Marines in one of her many scenes that shows why she was nominated for an Oscar, and Drake has the iconic line of, "We are leaving!" Apparently though, he didn't mean we to include himself, as just before he's able to get in the vehicle, Vasquez shoots one of the Xenos and it explodes into a wave of acid that kills him. That's it. Less than 8 minutes of on-screen time and the group is down to 3. Hudson's manic insanity is a metaphor for the group at large, and the panic in his voice is very real. The Colonial Marines were wiped out, maybe even faster than the colonists were, and even when it's time to leave, the ship is brought down when one of the aliens takes out the pilots. Apone and Dietrich are alive, but we know they're cocooned, and as Hudson so succinctly puts it, game over, man, game over. This whole scene is as fun and thrilling to watch as it is devastating. All these cool characters who were so prepared for this job have been completely wiped out. There is no way to take the aliens on with brute force, and certainly not on their level or in their homes. It does a great job of mixing action, horror, tension, and adrenaline in ways we don't often see. The closest thing I can think of in other movies is The Rock, when the Navy SEALs sneak into the prison from the way Sean Connery escaped, and they find themselves in a trap set by the rogue military guys. Michael Biehn didn't make it out of that one, unfortunately, but he did make it to Alien 3 either, so I guess here we are. While a scene like the Marines getting absolutely wrecked is quick, brutal, and kind of a bummer for all the reasons I listed above already, it's also quite needed. It threads the needle of horror in this movie like nothing else. It sets the precedent that any of the characters can die, and quickly at that. It also shows just how unsafe and potentially screwed the survivors are the rest of the movie. There are some other horror elements strewn throughout the movie, including Burke trying to get the girls implanted by facehuggers, the aliens in the upper vent scene, and of course the quiet showdown with the Queen in her lair, but the explosiveness and suddenness of all these characters being taken away is a completely different kind of horror. Alien 3 would even try to pull this off in a different fashion in a couple of different scenes with both the explosion and the relay race near the end, but it doesn't feel the same. Those prisoners aren't armed, nor are they nearly as well trained as our group. Not to mention that their threat is a solo stalker like Part 1 rather than a whole damn xenomorph army. I know it's coming every time I fire up this movie on whatever cut I decide to take on that day, but it still never disappoints. The thrill of the fight with the music blaring after being absent, the deaths and the ones who will suffer a worse fate, and the narrowing down of the cast to give others room to breathe are all part of the charm. The pieces leading up to it give it the impact, but the actual 8 minutes of screen time are some of the best and most subversive the genre has to offer. They really just should have nuked the place from orbit. You know, just to be sure.
Thank you for clicking on our video, everybody. If you like what you saw here, please make sure you like the video and subscribe and share with your friends who like this sort of content. JoBlo was created by movie fans for movie fans, and we appreciate your support.